We're inside of 2 months until Selection Sunday in men's college basketball. 58 to be exact, and by now we've got a decent idea of who's good, who's not, and who's on the bubble. As of today, Duke and Auburn are tied for the shortest odds to win the national championship at 5-1. Let's bring in our Jerry Palm and Kyle Boone to start this segment and talk college hoops. Our bracketologist is here, and then Booney's going to give us a little context and some insight on what Jerry has to talk about. So let's start at the top there, Jerry, that you have on CBSSports.com. Projected 1 seeds in Auburn, Iowa State, Tennessee, and Duke.
Yeah, Tennessee back on the top line after a brief hiatus following that 30-point loss to Florida. But Alabama spent some time there, and it's just, those SEC teams are good at beat each other up. Nobody's beating up Auburn yet, even without Johnny Broome. But so far, Auburn has been the class of college basketball. Duke has been tremendous. Iowa State's having a great year. That number 4 spot may rotate a few times between now and as we get to Selection Sunday, and some of these others could as well. But so far, it's just been that number 4 spot that seems to be rotating.
Yeah, I don't think there's any disputing here. The number 1 seeds that Palm has, Auburn with 9 quadrant 1 wins on the seasons. That's most among all college basketball teams. They're number 1 in the AP poll, number 1 in various metrics. Duke, of course, with the top 10 offense, the top 10 defense, very balanced on both ends. Cooper Flagg, the true freshman who looks like the number 1 pick in this coming NBA draft class, has really shined. He's taken a leap, and in fact, he's the betting favorite right now to be player of the year. You've got Iowa State, which has continued to play well. Their only loss this season coming to number 1 Auburn earlier this season. They played tremendous, and this is a team that under TJ Otzelberger has learned defense and played defense at a really high level. Now they're getting offense at a level that they have not got the last few years. Curtis Jones has really made a leap and really emerged as a potential All-American candidate. And then finally, Tennessee, you mentioned, a team that was number 1 in the AP poll for more than a month. They bop out just a little bit here, but I do believe resume-wise and the fact that they'll have some opportunities in SEC play, I would have them on the number 1 seed line as well. So no problems here with what Palm has. All
right, Jerry, let's get to your projected 2 seeds, the next tier. Oregon, Kentucky, Marquette, and Alabama.
Yeah, Alabama just pinned on the top line, so they dropped down after that home loss this past weekend. Marquette's having a tremendous season. They got a real challenge from DePaul, a game I went to, and they were lucky to get away with that one. Oregon has the second most quad 1 wins with 8 so far. So, and the SEC is well represented everywhere in the top quadrant of this bracket. I have 8 SEC teams in the top 16 and 4 Big Ten teams. So it took about a half an hour to bracket just those 16 teams and try and follow as many of the bracketing rules as was possible, but it wasn't possible to follow all of them.
Yeah, I think Marquette stands out here, Palm, just to kind of follow up on what you're saying here. 15-2 on the season. This is Marquette's best start since 2008-2009, when they had Wesley Matthews and Jimmy Butler. They are the only remaining unbeaten team in the Big East in conference play already. Oregon has taken 2 pretty tough losses, but their resume overall is still very strong. And, the 15-2 on the season. Bama has been very hot up until this week, end up losing their first game in SEC play. But this is a team that, when they're hot, they're really hot. They've been really hot of late. Their offense has been tremendous. Mark Sears, LeBaron Philon. This is a team that made a run to the Final Four last year, in position to do so again this year. And then finally, Kentucky, first year under Mark Pope. Their offense has been humming at a level that we really did not see under John Calipari the last couple of years. The very fun team to watch, a lot of balance, not necessarily a ton of stars, but the pieces fit at a really high level, and it's a fun team to watch right now in Lexington.
So let's keep Marquette in the conversation, though, but talk about the Big East and its bracketology, Jerry. So let's talk about the Golden Eagles, UConn, St. John's, and Creighton in terms of the 4 teams to highlight in this league.
Yeah, Marquette, obviously the highest seeded of those. UConn still having a good year, the 2-time defending champion. Other than, that lost weekend in Maui, UConn has still been very good. I don't know if they look like a Final Four team, but you certainly would be foolish to rule them out entirely because of just the history in that program and knowing how to do it. But then there's a big gap. You know, the gap to St. John's, the gap to Creighton, and of course Creighton is playing without Pop Isaacs, their leading scorer, and you know, when anybody loses their leading scorer, you're going to suffer. And Creighton is suffering, but not so far enough to push them entirely out of the bracket. And to be honest, there isn't another contender for the NCAA tournament in this league, at least not yet. There's still plenty of time for someone to get hot and make a run, but I don't know where that run is coming from. These look like the 4 teams maximum right now that could make the tournament from the Big East.
And can you imagine, by the way, Jerry Palm, the look on the 12 seeds coach's face when they draw a 5-seed UConn in the first round of the NCAA tournament? Just have to be fuming. So, I think talent perspective, UConn is one of the best in college basketball. They're struggling with some injuries right now. Leah McNeely's out with a high ankle sprain. And, just last week, Dan Hurley, the UConn coach, said basically like, hey, if you want to get us, now is a good time to play us. We're struggling right now. McNeely's out. They're dealing with some rotations issues. But this is not the team that we saw in Maui earlier this season when they lost 3 in a row. I think the ceiling for this team among Big East teams is still higher than any team in college in the Big East. And I would not be betting against Dan Hurley. I would not be betting against the Huskies. Getting in as a 5 seed, I think, would be a team that I would be watching as potentially making a deep run in the NCAA tournament.
And I will let you know what those odds are as of today for UConn to go 3-peat, but that's a tease for a little bit later. Let's see if Kyle agrees with Jerry in terms of a surprise team that's down this year. What would that be? Which institution, Jerry?
Yeah, for me, it's Indiana. And maybe it's because I live in Indiana and I get to see a lot more of them than I do, maybe some other teams. But this Indiana team should be better than this. And, they're 13-5. It's not like they're never going to, they have no chance to make the tournament or anything. But the 5 losses are all by at least 15 points. And they're kind of no-show losses, but especially the most recent one to Illinois on their home floor. That team just looked like it had no interest in playing most of that game. And that is, as someone whose basketball education is rooted in watching Bob Knight and Gene Cady compete and have teams that really competed, and an Indiana team coached by one of those great Indiana players, that just baffles me. I don't understand how he can have a team that doesn't fight as hard as he did when he played, and sometimes this Indiana team just doesn't.
Yeah, it's tough to pile on Indiana here, but I will absolutely do it. They have by far been one of the biggest disappointments in all of college basketball this season. Coming off consecutive 25-point losses, they lost at home this week to Illinois by 25 points, and that was the second largest home loss for Indiana since Assembly Hall opened in 1971, Tommy. So things are bad right now. You could hear Fire Woodson chants from within Assembly Hall kind of early in that game. They fell behind by 30 points in the first half before only losing by 25 points. If you're looking for some bright spots, I don't have a ton for you. If you're kind of a Hoosiers fan right now, IU the last few years under Woodson has generated last of its offense by 3-pointers. Among all Big Ten teams. So, they're playing kind of an old school style. And early in his tenure, when he had Trace Jackson Davis, when he had the personnel to win kind of an old school way, you could kind of bubblegum and make things work. It's not working right now in Indiana, and things are going to go sideways here pretty quickly, I think.
Moody, Jerry, certainly appreciate it. By the way, go to CBSSports.com to get the last 4 in, first 4 out updated bracketology from JP. To pay off what Kyle was talking about, you don't see it here. Yes, you do. On the right side of your screen, UConn 25-1 to 3-peat, tied with Gonzaga, who lost last night to Oregon State in overtime in a game you saw right here on CBS Sports Network.